Okay.
This conference
We'll wait
will
a
now
second
be
to go ahead and
recorded.
I'll wait just a few minutes to call the meeting to order. Hi, Steve.
I'm in, thank you.
I'm on the phone with Steve right now.
I'm not actually hearing anybody. Is that me, Mike, or is it the system?
Nobody's really talking at the moment. We're waiting for Steve, see if he can get on.
Yeah, they're having technical difficulty, so I just gave them the phone number to call in. So let's go ahead and start the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have everybody rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Under
liberty
God,
and justice
with
for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So Steve should be on in a second, at least on the phone. Okay. So, Darlene, would you do a roll call and establish the quorum, please, and do the homeowners?
Barbara Fugelberg. Roberta Ernest. Can't hear you guys, but I see you. Marie Beschen. Becca Paulson.
There.
Steve Deal. Did Steve get on the line? Cindy Evans?
Yes.
Okay, Steve is trying to get on right now. So, homeowner statement period. In person, speaker may speak for no more than 2 minutes. If attending virtually, please mute your audio. Please use the chat option for your questions. Comments should be addressed to concerns of the motion before the board takes its formal action on an item under formal discussion on the table. Negative comments directed at residents, employees of the association, or board of directors will not be allowed.
Okay, great. So first thing on the agenda is the approval of the June 22nd, 2023 Board of Directors meeting. Can I get a motion? Marie?
I so move.
I'll second.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Roberta. Are there any questions or comments regarding the board meeting minutes from any of the board members? Seeing none. Anything from the residents, either in the room or on the chat line? I just want to remind the residents who are attending virtually that they can put their comments in the chat line, and we'll be monitoring that. Seeing none, I'll call for the motion. The motion is to approve the June 22nd, 2023 Board of Directors meetings. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay. Okay. If the residents are wondering, we're texting information back and forth to Steve to get online, so it's nothing other than that. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is financial report. First thing, we'd ask for Dawn Oberg, our accountant, to give us a financial update. Dawn, can you speak to that?
Good afternoon. I'm Dawn. As of June 30th, 2023, the cash balance in the operating account was $979,500. In the reserve, it was $4,149,140. In the activities, $130,767. In the food, $9,434. The clubs, $142,160. And the asset improvement is $1,073,276.
Thank you. Any questions from any member of the board regarding the financial update? Seeing none, any questions from any member of the community, either online or in the ballroom? Oh, it looks like it's all set up for a party. All right, seeing none, next thing that we have is the approval of the May and June 2023 financial reports. Can I get a motion to approve those? Becca?
I move to accept the May 23 and the June 23 financial statements.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, from Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. Are there any questions from any member of the board regarding the financial statements for either May or June of 2023? Seeing none, just as an FYI for the residents, when we get our financial reports, we get a very detailed listing from management regarding any of the exceptions. And so that's probably why you don't see that we have many questions when it comes to this phase. Any questions from any member of the community, either person who's online or anyone that is attending, anyone who's in the ballroom personally or anyone who's attending online? Seeing none, we'll move forward. The motion on the table to approve the May and June 2023 financial reports. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion's passed. What I want to do before we start the rest of the meeting is I just want to announce to the residents that the board met in executive session on July 19th for the sole purpose of reviewing a contract with Chef Peter for a trial period of 9 months. That had been approved for the board to move forward with looking into that at the last board meeting. At the executive session on July 19th, the board unanimously approved the 9-month trial period for Chef Peter to be leasing the chuck wagon with a review date at 6 months in December. As you know, I'm not on site right now, but what I see on Facebook and all, it seems, and next door, it seems like things are going well, and hoping that people will support that. And looking at the last thing that Chef Peter sent out, to my knowledge, had to do with the use of volunteers, and that he's really looking forward to be able to use volunteers. And if he has volunteers in place, then the residents of Happy Trails, if you wear an ID, will get a 20% discount once that is in place. So we're looking forward to Chef Peter having a successful run. We still will be entertaining if any volunteer group wants to be putting together a business plan to run the chuck wagon. We certainly will be entertaining anything that we receive. I don't see anything on the committee reports, no activities, department club updates, or old business. The first thing on the agenda is approve the estimates for the gate security. Is Steve available on the phone yet?
Negative. I haven't heard anything from him back yet.
All right. So the reason I was asking is because I was going to ask him to make the motion. Just scan forward here, second myself. I'm going to get to that page.
I can make the motion for you, Barb.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Roberta.
Yeah, so I move to approve the estimate from Southwest Doors and Gates in the amount of $32,351 for the installation of 4 barrier arms at the Roy Rogers and Walgreens gate to be paid out of the reserve items 704 and 705. This is the, I'm sorry, you need a second.
Can I get a second to that? Okay.
Second.
So go ahead, Roberta. What were you going to say more?
Yeah, so Mike can probably go into a little more detail since I seem to be having some audio issues, but this was actually somewhat of a recommendation by the safety committee into able to help keep people from coming in the exit part of these 2 gates. And the fact that the arms that we currently have on these 2 gates break a lot. They either hit a vehicle or a vehicle hits them and they break off. So they're costing the association continued expense. The replacement of the new arms, as I understand, will have what they call, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, fiberglass type bolts. They're breakaway bolts. The arms are heavier. So when they hit, they will actually break apart and then we can put them back together. The other factor is because the arms are heavier, this sounds crucial or mean, I don't mean it to be, it may actually create some damage to the vehicles. So hopefully we can recoup some costs for the expense of these arms continuously. There will be an arm on the outside and an arm on the inside of the exit side of the gates so that people cannot drive in from the exit once that gate is open. There will be a bar that comes down after the vehicle exits the premises, if that makes sense to anybody. There was also a portion put in there for a cut, which we have to talk about, that would allow for an automatic exit out of Roy Rogers. So anybody could drive up to Roy Rogers exit and get out. So that's something we as a group have to discuss, whether we want to include that as part of this. The other thing I would ask, Mike, I had sent you an email looking for if we could break it out per gate. So much for Roy Rogers, so much for Walgreens. I didn't want to automatically assume it's an even cut of the 32,000 in half. So take it from there.
Okay.
Barb, if I,
Go ahead.
So Roberta, on a couple things, to speak to the bolts, you're absolutely right. Nylon rather than, permanent bolts that would prevent our arms from breaking, or at a point where we're replacing the entire arm versus replacing the hardware, which would benefit us, as the cost we're spending on gate arms is essentially astronomical. So the air barrier arm wasn't as important as really making sure that we weren't allowing vehicles to enter our exit. That was our primary concern. We had spikes that were there at one point in time. The spikes were removed. We know that that's not an option at this point in time. So we're looking at alternatives. The alternatives were a barrier arm. The challenge there is that you want to try to maintain good accessibility to exit our gates for our residents, but not allow entrance. So what would happen here, Roberta, is that the barrier arm would be just on the interior side of the exit gate, so that barrier arm would be timed to come down while that gate was still open. The gate takes a little bit longer, allowing folks to enter into that area. So the barrier arm would come down, not allowing a vehicle to pass through. One thing I learned this morning, and I'll address to the board, the entire board, is that we were estimated for 4 barrier arms, which I requested, as our existing barrier arms were a breakaway style. We've also been estimated for 4 operators, and there was a little bit of confusion, and I called this morning just to clarify. I spoke with Southwest Doors, and I asked him, I said, hey, we're looking at 4 operators, and he said, well, that's what you requested. I said, well, we were looking at 4 barrier arms. He said, well, you can't install your new barrier arms with the system you have. That's why we're looking at 4 operators. So if we're looking at just the exit, and that's the direction the board would like to go, this estimate is much higher than anticipated, because they're looking at operators for the entrance that are currently working. So if we would like to upgrade our barrier arms in that location, then it's necessary to upgrade our operators. If we're not looking to upgrade our operators in that location at this time, the only thing that's necessary is the exit operators. So then you'd be looking at 2 operators and 2 barrier arms versus 4 and 4. And that would cover the exits at Roy Rogers and Walgreens Gate. The primary concern is the security coming in from the outside. The nice thing about the newer barrier arms is that they're lighted. They have LEDs across them while they're down, red LEDs. Of course, they have the yellow LEDs flashing when they're coming up. Better visual for our residents, better quality with the nylon bolts versus the breakaway actual arm itself, but it's not plausible to use with our existing operator. That was the problem. So if we would like to move forward with just the exit gates, we're looking at a much, much lower estimate than our $32,000.
This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, it looks like Steve's online now. So Steve, we're just talking about the motion regarding the barrier arms at the Walgreens Gate and the Roy Rogers. And what Mike Nice was just informing us is that the bid is for the 4 arms and 4 operators, because we're looking at the arms for both exit and entrance at both sites. If we just are looking for the exit signs, we may only need 2 arms and 2 operators. So that's a decision that we would need to have here. Steve, with that, what's your initial thoughts? While you're putting those together, I see Becca's got her hand.
No,
Becca, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, they're shaking their head, yes.
Why
Why don't you turn your volume down? Go ahead.
Okay.
It's getting terrible.
I tell you, I think you're going to have to do this without me. I've tried this and the telephone and everything is working today.
Steve, let's put you on mute for right now, and then you can also put your comments in the chat line. So Becca, why don't you go ahead with your question or comment?
I had a question for Mike and or Darlene. I don't know if you have this information, or even Don. How much money did we spend on the arms that broke this last year? Or gate repairs that this new system would take care of?
It's hard to say with gate repairs. I could get your numbers for your arms. You know, I know we go through a couple arms, at least a few arms a month. I mean, it's oh yeah, very much so. It's hard to say with the repairs to the gates because in some occasions we have accidents where vehicles hit gates and things like that. So repairs are a little bit more challenging. But the actual arms themselves, I don't have in front of me. I don't know if Don has that information available right this moment, but I can get you that information. I just broke down some numbers really quick for the board, and in order to do the 2 exits, we're looking at $16,300, including labor. So it cuts the estimate in half, essentially, to not do the entrance at this point in time. Only thing that's giving us, they're operating. The only thing that the entrance gates are giving us is new barrier arms.
So Mike, this is Barb. If we, so there's the parts of the entire system is that there's the barrier arms, the operator, but then there's also the metal gate that goes across. And the metal gate, how frequently is that metal gate damaged?
I wouldn't say too frequently, only when a car goes through it. But a couple times a year, probably. And our maintenance, I mean, it comes off the track every now and again, but normal repairs, chain repairs, things like that, that's typical. But usually it's pretty sturdy. You know, the wrought iron gate itself, it's pretty basic. A pulley pulls the chain and opens the gate on a track.
When we have that, when we have either any of those go down, there has been some instances where they've been down for an extended period of time. Can you think back to some of those scenarios and describe, was it the barrier arm or was it the actual metal gate itself?
Actually, it was neither. I mean, most of our parts that we were waiting for wasn't due to, say, for the last instance that we had, Roy Rogers Gate was closed for like a month. And we had a vehicle that you know, an accident where a vehicle came through the gate. The welding and the repairs to the gate itself was, we can almost have that immediately taken care of. What we were waiting on was the parts to the operator. The operator itself is what was taking forever. The operator is attached to the arm, so it comes up on the side of the operator, and that's what is outdated in our system. So we were waiting on gears and things on the internals of that operator that weren't readily available any longer.
Okay, Becca, you have a question? Go ahead.
No, I have a comment. I just looked up gate system repair expense for last year was over $26,000. I think the year before was probably close to the same. It is a significant expense. I just want everybody to understand. It's a lot of money that we spend every year for these arms and what's the other, whatever the other piece is called, break for whatever reason.
Yeah, the motor.
The motor.
So I can't see either Marie or Cindy. What kind of questions or comments do either of you have?
My only comment is, my question, I guess, is when a resident breaks the arm, how often are we asking the resident to pay for it?
The last resident that broke the arm, his insurance or their insurance paid for the damage. I submitted it to their insurance company and we did receive the money.
Yeah.
Marie, if I can add to that, the arm is a challenging scenario too, because if you go down and watch one of those gates for a while, they're a plastic arm, and what happens is if 2 vehicles are coming in at the same time and one vehicle is directly behind the other and it reads the transponder of the first vehicle, but the second vehicle isn't spaced further enough back, that barrier arm comes down on the vehicle. And the challenge that we have is that typically it doesn't do damage to the vehicle, it does damage to our arm. They're breakaway arms intentionally for that reason. And in those scenarios, it's hard to it's hard to establish the cost of that gate arm because it was due to the operator coming down on the vehicle and breaking the arm. In the instances where it's an accident or something along those lines, oh, of course we contact the owner. We've had where they were actually ripped off of there out of frustration versus somebody, a barrier coming down. So it happens, but a lot of the times the barrier arms, just because the system, it's electronic, and it's far from perfect.
My next question is, I understand the logic and I like it that the ARM has a breakaway system to it with inputs. However, it sounds like the big cost is if it's damaged to the operator. So if that breaks
I mean, it's
away
all-
and the operator's damaged, we're back to square one again, though, are we not?
So yes and no. I think that our costs in general for the barrier arms are very, very minimal. If I can break that down with the barrier arms themselves, with the lights, the 4 of them are $850 a piece. I mean, so the barrier arms themselves aren't super astronomical in the cost portion. Really, what you're looking at is the actual the motor, the system that runs that barrier arm. Our biggest concern is that the parts aren't readily available for the system that we currently have. A newer system, of course, would provide us more opportunity for parts readily available. And that's part of our infrastructure issues that we're dealing with. But you're right, effectively, we're looking at operators that do work versus operators but are outdated, that we're spending a lot of money to try to find parts for, or something newer that has more readily available parts.
Do we have as much of an issue at the Cotton Gate, the Walgreens Gate, as we do at Roy Rogers?
From what I understand, it's more of a Roy Rogers concern. Cindy and you and I were talking that most vehicles, you can only get one vehicle into that Walgreens location, um, before they back up onto Cotton. The concern that I hear from the resort is security and securing it, and a lot of the feedback and a lot of the communication from our residents are ensuring that we're trying to secure the resort. Now, I can't go back too far. I know that when we had the spikes at the Roy Rogers only. I don't believe we had any spikes at the Walgreens Gate at any point in time. I don't know what the feedback was there in the past or what our thoughts were there. I just figured we would get estimates for both, but I think the primary concern is Walgreens, and of course that's probably I'm sorry, Roy Rogers. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges because, of course, all of our traffic comes to the Roy Rogers Gate. GPS takes you to the Roy Rogers Gate. We're trying to work on, relocating folks so that they're aware. We're getting some new signage made to try to, let them know that the entrance is at off Bell. But even at the Walgreens Gate, it says, main entrance off Bell Road, but it doesn't say particularly where. So we're going to get some clear signage on those gates or near those gates to try to improve that some, but it sounds like Roy Rogers is the primary concern.
So Roberta, any other comments from you?
No, well, yes. So how much money do we have listed supposedly in the reserve account for this? I thought I heard you say the other day about 18,000. Is that correct?
This is Barb. I think there's a little more than that, but I think we all have to remember that regardless of whether there's money listed in the reserve as a replacement cost, do we actually have the dollars? Mike mentioned the other day to us, though briefly, that we may have some dollar savings from the asphalt that we can use to cover this. The dollars that were allocated to the asphalt reserves, we may be able to pay for this. So the question for me is, or I think for all of us, is that do we want to go for just the 2 arms, one on each, one arm, one operator on Roy Rogers and in Walgreens, or do we want to go for the barriers to be added to the exit sign so someone can't come in the exit when the gate is still open? So either do we want to spend 16,000 or 32,000? Where are we leaning?
So Barb, if it's me, I guess my suggestion and my preference might be at this time is to do Roy Rogers completely and hold off on Walgreens so that we can put that into the budget for 2024 and just cover the Roy Rogers exit, because that's the big one that seems to be hit a lot as opposed to the Walgreens one. That's my thought. I'll entertain anybody else's ideas.
Becca?
I would go along with that. I would just assume though, do them both while they're available. We have the estimate for them and get them done, because it has been, the problems with the gates have been significant and the expense has been significant. I would just as soon take care of the problem.
Cindy and Marie?
I go along with Roberta's suggestion.
I'm good with Roy Rogers alone.
And Steve, I'm assuming, Steve, you can hear me. So you're okay with going along with just Roy Rogers, but both entrance and exit on Roy Rogers? Roberta, am I correct in that?
Yes, do Roy Rogers completely, and then that's put into the budget for Walgreens to follow suit in 2024.
Okay. I'm going to amend the motion then, so that the motion would be that we move to approve the estimate from Southwest Doors and Gates in the amount of $16,300 for the installation of 2 barrier arms, both entrance and exit at the Roy Rogers gate, to be paid out of reserve item 704, 705. Can I get a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. Comment before that, though, is that part of this estimate, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike Nice, is that it would include a $700 charge to allow cars to exit without a transponder at the Roy Rogers gate. Am I correct in that?
That is correct, if we wish.
Okay. So I'd like the board to comment on that. And then for the residents, once the board is finished with all these comments, we will open it up to you for comment.
So,
Roberta?
yeah, so having worked with the safety committee, I will go with the majority. There's concern about having an immediate exit all the time for theft, etc. Although it has been said that people can go out the front gate just as well. Then the other factor is, if you don't have an exit, you have a safety concern when people or commercial trucks have to back up in that area and they don't have enough room. Lord knows we have enough signage out there that says it's basically an exit only for residents. And I know that patrol tells these people they have to come back out the gate that they came in, but apparently they don't listen. So I'm just going to say I will go with whatever the majority of the board wants to do.
Okay. Becca, any comment from you?
Yes, I would like to go ahead and make Roy Rogers an exit gate. I live right over there. I see people all the time getting stuck at that gate and either backing up and turning around, or they sit there and wait until somebody goes out. It's a very, very busy gate. I would rather have an arm there to, not allow people to come in, but I don't see, if somebody's already in there, I don't see a problem with letting them out. If you go through the main gate, nobody is watching anyway. And so anybody can go out that main gate. So I don't really see a difference.
Okay. Cindy?
I'm with Becca on this.
Okay, that's a good one. Marie?
I'm with Becca as well. It doesn't make any sense to me. If they're in the park, we've allowed them in the park. Why can't we allow them out of the park?
Right, yeah. Steve, are you fine with the $700 to allow egress out of the Walgreens gate? Excuse me, Roy Rogers, I apologize, Roy Rogers gate. Thumb up. I see it. Tina, are there any other questions, comments from the board? Roberta?
No, I'm just saying Steve looks like he's typing.
Okay. While he's doing that, I see a chat in the if there's any comments from anyone in the ballroom, please come up to the microphone and give your name and lot number and natural hair color and preferred age. Comment in the chat says the Walgreen gate is also already very busy. Now everyone who wants to run a gate will move to Walgreens. I'm assuming she means to enter illegally in there.
I don't think they have the capability as easily as they do at Roy Rogers, but I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah.
We do
So I
have
see
people
someone, yeah, go ahead. Your name and lot number, please.
Jeannie Abbott, lot 624. What you guys decide to do with an arm, that's okay. I could care one way or the other, actually. But I am totally, totally opposed to having the North Gate, the Roy Rogers Gate, as an automatic gate. I have lived here long enough when the Roy Rogers Gate was automatic, and it was nothing but theft in the resort. Our theft went up about 30 to 40%. And the reason for that, it was discovered later, is the contractors were coming in, and at that time, that package, and I don't know what package it is, but it's north of Roy Rogers off of Pat Brady. That section was being built up. Contractors were losing their tools hand over fist by other contractors being in the resort, loading up their trucks when they were leaving and sneaking right out the Roy Rogers gate. Also, we lost golf carts because people could just pull up, the gate would open and they would drive out. People lost bicycles, they lost lawn furniture. The theft was outrageous. And what's going to happen if you put that gate back up to an automatic gate again, you're going to have your theft rate high again. And it doesn't matter with the golf carts if you tell people, well, take your keys out. Well, I'm sorry, but there's several golf carts out there, the brands of golf cart, where one key will fit all of them. So having that done is not a fix-it. I am totally opposed to having that gate as an automatic gate because your theft rate in Happy Trails is going to go up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. And then I see there's another comment in the line that said, should be secure to monitor what is being hauled out. I'm not understanding what that means. Maybe they could clarify that a bit. Go ahead, person in the room.
Marion Connolly, lot 1645. I also have been here for 22 years, and I remember when the gate opened automatically, and I remember when 4 golf cars that from here were found up in Whitman because they were just lifting them into the backs of their pickup trucks and going out. One of the problems that I don't think has ever been addressed, when you approach the Roy Rogers gate to go out, there's a very small white sign with a very small light that comes on at night that says, I think something to the effect that exit for residents only. Nobody sees that. That's a vendor in here. I'm sure 9 out of 10 people drive right by that little sign, get all the way up to the gate, and then they have to back up and try to get out. You need to fix that sign so it's big and lit up at night so they don't have to get all the way up to the gate before they know that they came to the wrong spot. And it would just really help if it just said something simple like all vendors or non-residents must exit the main gate, period.
Thank you, Marion. I see there's another comment, just a second, Mike, another comment in the chat about agreeing with Jeannie Abbott, no to automatic gate. Mike, go ahead.
I was just gonna speak to the operator situation. I wanted to add that that can always be a discussion for an operator at any point in time. I think our primary goal here was to ensure that the security of this gate was maintained for folks entering the exit. And I do think very strongly that there could be some improvement of some signage. I think we have to be creative there of how we can get that seen better. That corner is kind of challenging. I know we've talked about some paintings on the street. We can approach that, with minimal expense and try that. If that does fail, this discussion can come back to the table at any point in time. But I think it is important to make sure that the purpose was, securing that gate and not fixing something that wasn't broken.
Thank you. So person at the microphone, your name and lot number, please.
Yeah, Lauren Hanson, lot 556. We've got signage by the gates there that says no trailers going out. And I imagine that's because that gate would close on those trailers because it's not reading a transponder. If you have an automatic out, you're going to have contractors going out of there with big long trailers on there, and there's the risk of that gate closing on that, causing more damage.
You're correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, I would have recognized you, but the lighting is not.
I changed my mind. I heard you.
Well, hold on. Go ahead.
Yes, my concern is 1621 Maynard Bethune. Have we talked to the company that we have now about putting in a better setup? Because this must be, I've been here 4 years, so it's at least 4 years old, and I think they've come up with better ways to open and close the gate. And also, I'd like to say we need more lighting out there, or reflective tape on the arm so you can see it at night.
That's what the proposal was, Maynard.
Okay, but I'm talking about the other company, the company that put it in originally. Now we have the transponders or whatever it is that opens and closes the gate automatically. Now why can't we work with this company? I mean, it hasn't mattered over the years. It takes 6 months to get it open or a month to get it open. That's never been a problem because everything is that way. I mean, they're still working on the roof.
Sure.
So that things take 6 months to a year to get anything done. So we know that already.
So tell me your question again, Maynard. I'm so sorry.
Type of.
So it is the same type of operator. It essentially does the same thing. It's improved, of course. The style and how it communicates has improved, of course, over the last 20 years. But of course, it's a completely different system. The actual only thing maintaining would be the actual gate itself, the wrought iron gate that just slides in the track. And that's pretty basic style for entrance and exit gate versus it coming up and down with hydraulics. That's, hydraulics like this is more repair. You're looking at way more, moving parts to bring that gate up in the air.
Okay.
You got to move your hand, Maynard, up on the microphone. You're covering this area. There you go.
This company that we have now, they have said that they can't.
Oh yeah, they can. They can improve the system that we have.
Like what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
So why aren't we talking with them more? Because it seems to me that if we already have the stuff there and all we have to add on to it, it would be a lot cheaper than we come in. They just quit. Oh.
The company that we used way back in the day, I can't even speak to which company that was and if they're readily available. We worked with Park Pro for many years. and they're not as responsive as I would wish at this point in time. We've had multiple different gate companies that we have done business with, but the reality is we're restricted to what our gates will do. The system that we have is only as smart as the system as we have, and once
So there's no updates. They can't update it.
correct, there's no updating what we have existing. Correct.
Okay. And we need signs. I'm big on signs. You know,
I got you.
Michael.
I know signs, Maynard.
So I see some comments in the chat. Does anyone else in the ballroom has anything that has not been addressed yet?
We have one more question here. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, quick question. Reed Haywood, space 1356. And with this discussion, I'd just like to know, my background's healthcare. I worked in the Maui hospital right before this. And so my question is, and just real quickly, could somebody, maybe Roberta or somebody for the group to know, what is the triage situation about getting a gate open if there is a natural disaster? Is the business office in charge of making sure that it's opened without any issues? What happens if there is a natural disaster and we all have to get out of here? I don't really have an opinion about whether we have the gate up and down all the time. I just want to know, if we need to leave the premises, does the business office or a safety officer, who gets out there and makes sure that we can flow out of here quickly? Thank you.
This is Barbara. I can speak to that. We don't have a good disaster plan. We've got some that have talked in the past more, and then how we would. It talks more about us getting, say, children in here from a local school and that kind of stuff, and that this would be a spot where that they would come. But it is something that our safety committee is constantly looking at updating, and that's probably going to be on their list of things to do this next year. So I'm going to call for the vote. The feedback I've gotten from the board members here is that the motion would state that we're moving to approve the estimate of Southwest Doors and Gates in the amount of $16,300 to the installation of 2 barrier arms and operators at the Roy Rogers Gate, and to not move forward with having the automatic exit at this time.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a roll call vote, please, since it's a dollar amount?
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal.
It says no.
Oh, he says no. Okay, thank you. Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Okay, motion
passes. Thank you. Next thing, and thank the residents for their input. That was very helpful. And what we can do is ask the BG&M committee to sort of put the issue regarding the replacement of the Walgreens gate on their to-do list, so that if they determine, and Mike Nice determines that it needs to move forward in the next budget year, we can bring that forward. The next thing on the agenda is approving the activities budget. I'll move to approve the 2023-2024 activities budget. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any member of the board regarding the activities budget? It's in our packet. Cindy or Marie? I can't see you, so.
No comment.
Okay. All right, seeing none, any questions or comments from any member of the residents? Just as an FYI, there really is no significant change to the activities budget for this next year. Same staffing, same budget related to shows and those types of things. Anyone coming up in the ballroom? Okay, no. Seeing none, all in favor?
Oops, spoke too soon.
Yes, not too long ago at one of these meetings, the sawmill asked for an additional or add-on to their building over there. Now, is that included in this, or do they have to come back 3 or 4 times to get it approved?
Go through the
This has
budget.
nothing to do with this sawmill. That has to do with the club. This is just the Department of the Activities as to for their budget. Seeing no further.
Hi, sorry,
Go
it's Reed
ahead.
again from 1356. And I just want to say to Barb.
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
I'm here.
It's the covering of the little plastic. Do you see that little window
Is that
there?
better? Okay. Hello? There we go. I just wanted to say that comment about the safety and the residents getting out. I think that was a little bit, I don't know how to say it, kind of blown off. And I think that it would be very helpful if the board could communicate what will happen if there is a disaster and how residents would be able to leave. Okay, and thank you for looking into it. I'd like to see what happens if we need to.
So Reed, I apologize if you felt that my comment was blown off, and I do appreciate that you've been in healthcare for a number of years. I was in healthcare as a registered nurse for 42 years myself. My comment was that to say that the safety committee and thus therefore the community does not have a disaster plan that really addresses that. Our disaster plan that we have right now really talks more of how we would work with the community and that there was a disaster in some other building and how we would respond to assist that. We don't currently have anything that speaks on how we would evacuate our community. And that would be something we'll be asking our safety committee to look into. Thank you.
Barb, can I add something to that really quickly?
Uh-huh.
I'm so sorry. We had 2 scenarios, like when the gate was down, an occasion where we had to open the gate and man it, and patrol had manned that gate physically to be there, like when we did asphalt and things along those lines where we had to man the gate as well. So if we absolutely had to, we could man that gate so that it was secure.
Right. So the motion on the table is to approve the activities budget. Call for that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is to approve sending a cease and desist letter to Pioneer Roofing. Can I get a motion to that effect? Roberta, would you make a motion?
Sure. I move to approve sending a cease and desist letter to Pioneer Roofing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So motion moved and second. Mike Nice, could you give us some background on this?
Yeah, so Pioneer Roofing was hired in 2021 to do 1/3 of the town center re-roofing. Stark Weather was to do the metal roofing, and Pioneer was to focus primarily on the flat roofs. We've had a number of delays and issues that have occurred over the time frame. And at this point in time, we're a year and a half into an improvement project that is making very, very little progress. At this point in time, we've requested that they not pull off any more roofing that is on top of our existing roof, and we be at a standstill at this moment. We do have an air conditioning unit that is scheduled to be installed that was kind of included in that contract, which is something that we're working through at the moment with Pioneer Roofing. It's to be installed by a third-party contractor through the Pioneer Roofing contract, and ultimately that billing is proceeding. So we purchased the unit. The unit is on site. It's off the side of the building now. It's been delivered. Ambition Air Conditioning is scheduled to install the unit, but no roofing will be done underneath that existing unit at this time. Pioneer Roofing, the communications that we've had with them is regards to what's going on and how slow it's been going. Of course, a lot of the conversation is COVID this and material this, and they're having some struggles with their employees and their employment. which ultimately isn't our business. But we're not getting anywhere with Pioneer Roofing, and that's the challenge where we're at right now.
So that in essence, our cease and desist letter would be spelling out that we, in essence, would be paying them for any dollars that we owe them for the work that they have completed, but that we would be asking for the rest of those dollars that are left in the initial bid that then we would use to pay Phoenix Roofing to complete. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. I mean, at this time, we've requested that Phoenix Roofing and Repair give a look at our roof and figure out what's going on. They have been on our other roofs as we've approved them to do the other third of the town center, and they are confident that they will be able to complete the job. The good news is that what has been completed on the roof that's over the chuck wagon kitchen as we speak has been dried in, so we shouldn't be looking at any kind of crazy, disastrous leaks in the time being, and Phoenix Roofing should be able to work it right up into a change order that would get that job finished quickly.
All right. Any questions, comments from any board member? Roberta, anything? Becca?
No, I agree with the cease and desist letter.
Okay. Marie?
I'm good.
Okay. Cindy?
I'm good.
Okay. Steve, Steve's there. I'm listening to a voicemail from him right now, but I'm sure he's fine with this because he, in essence, started the conversation. So seeing no other comments from any member of the board, I'll open it up to the community. Either those people who are in the ballroom right now, you can come up to the microphone, or anyone who's attending virtually, you can put your comments or questions in the chat, please. Let's start with the ballroom, please. Go ahead.
Donna Wisdom 379. I only have one question. The air conditioner, it will be put in and it will not go, Pioneer won't come in and steal it back and say, nope, that's part of the contract, correct?
It was a separate
My
item.
recommendation to the board would be to get that air conditioner installed and then send the cease and desist letter.
Right.
We're hoping it will be installed within the next 2 weeks, if not less.
Smart move, darling.
Anything else from anyone in the ballroom?
Yeah, my question is, how big a bag of worms are we going to create by putting this air conditioner on the old roof? And when they come in to tear the roof off, are they going to have to take the air conditioner back out?
They very well may have to lift the air conditioning. They won't have to remove it, but they will have to lift it to complete the roofing underneath it.
Is that going to cost us anything extra?
Everything is going to cost money, but one way or another, we're going to get out from under a situation that is going nowhere. I can't tell you exactly what our dollars are going to look like to improve that location. We do know that we will most likely be looking at foaming the roof underneath the existing air conditioning unit, as it was not initially leaking, versus removing all of the 4 inches of foam on that existing roof and doing a flat rolled roofing, which was what was estimated initially. So it'll be a little bit different. Our estimation will be lower because of the material, of course, but we will have to lift that unit at some point in time. One way or another, every flat roof in this, throughout the resort has a unit on it or multiple units on it, and they have to be lifted in order to roof it. So pretty typical practice for them.
Anything from anyone else in the ballroom? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Seeing none, I'll call for the motion. The motion is to approve sending a cease and desist letter to Pioneer Roofing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm getting a call. Steve is still having issues. He says that if we need his vote, to give him a call. The next thing on the agenda is to approve changes to the storage lease. Roberta, could you make that motion?
I move to make or approve changes to the current storage lease.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, motion passed in second. So Roberta, could you speak to what the changes would be?
Sure, absolutely. So at the last planning meeting, you guys asked me to put something together with regard potentially adding 6-month lease programming into the situation. And that was also at the request of many residents that were thinking that would like to go back to having the option of being able to have a 6-month lease. So I reviewed the lease that we currently have. One basic thing we need to do is we need to restructure the lease agreement, renumber everything. That's pretty easy. Under number 2, where it talks about term, I made a change and put in the option of the term of this lease shall be for either, and it would be A, for 6 months commencing on November 1st until April 30th, or B, 12 months commencing on May 1st until April 30th. I left the years out so we could keep it generic. And then I actually broke it out as that at the end of the conclusion of the 6-month lease, there would not be an automatic renewal. The leasing would be added to the storage lot waiting list, providing there was still a waiting list, and that, you know, space may be available at a future date. They may be able to continue renting if there's no waiting list. There was no contractual obligation at that point, and that they're not guaranteed the same space. B was that at the conclusion of the 12-month lease, a renewal will be mailed out 30 days prior to the end of the lease, which is what we currently do now. And the leasee may be able to enter into another 12-month agreement and keep the current space or move to an available vacant space if there was one such available. And I'm paraphrasing right now. Then the other fact, and then we continued on with the rest of the actual lease. In rental, I just put numbers in, so don't anybody shoot me. Seeing as how we just had a raise in the cost of the 12-month lease, I put for the 6-month lease, so much per month for the space for a small lot and so much for the large lot. And normally in my experience, when you want to incentivize people to go for long-term, you give them a discount on the long-term, and your short-term is a little higher in cost per month. So that's where I came up with those numbers. You'll also notice that I put in there for those people that might want to play the system a little bit, that if they signed with a 12-month lease and they canceled early, they would be prorated at the 6-month rate versus the 12-month rate. So just kind of keep that in mind. And remember, this is all revenue streaming. These were just ideas that we put in there. To address an item that Cindy brought up, you'll see under number 4, I put storage of vehicle. I put that needed to be updated to say something more like if the lease is for storage of a recreational vehicle, then provide the name on the registration, the state of the license, proof of current registration required. So those were the changes I recommended. Up for discussion.
So this is Barb. On that last point, though, you still would assume that it's not limited to RV storage. It could be a boxcar storage or a boat storage or anything like that. Am I correct?
Well, it currently is being used for boat storage and enclosed trailer storage and flat trailer storage. But as stated earlier, I think Cindy sent that email, it's pretty obvious that the current lease actually talks about recreational storage only, recreational vehicle storage only. So I thought it is important that we break that out. And that if it is for a recreational vehicle, then we need to state that they need proof of registration.
Okay. I would be uncomfortable if we are changing it to that it must be a recreational vehicle, only because I know we've got a lot of, Well, some people store their cars there. Some people store their boats. Some people store their storage unit there.
I'm not suggesting that, Barb.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear because I'm losing some audio, but no, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that we need to break it out, that all of that is included in the storage, but that if it is a recreational vehicle, we should have proof of registration on that vehicle.
All right. Marie, what are your...
Do it with a car too, I'm sorry, now that I think about it. Proof of registration of any motor operated and trailer so that we know that they're licensed properly.
I'll start with Marie. Any questions, comments from you?
That sounds good to me.
Okay. Cindy?
I think the concerns that I expressed to Roberta were increasing the rate of the 6-month rental. We just increased rates and it just seems like I'm just not comfortable with that. I'm questioning the holdover fee. And are we creating an out for people to give us $100 a month as a holdover fee and they end up accruing a lot of rental fees? So I have a question there.
So if I could address your first question, and I'll let somebody like maybe Mike or Darlene answer the holdover fee because I've not been too much engaged with that. So I want to caution that the suggestion is not to increase the 6-month renewal of the 6-month lease because we don't currently have a 6-month lease. We only have a 12-month lease. So yes, the monetary money I put on the monthly rate for a 6-month lease is more than what it is for a 12-month lease. But typically that's what happens when you're in a rental situation. Usually your short-term lease is a little higher. I arbitrarily put numbers there. We can change that. That's a discussion with the board. But I just caution us from saying that we're raising the 6-month lease when we really don't have a 6-month lease. Darlene or Mike, can you talk to the holdover fee, or maybe Dawn?
I believe you're referring to a holdover fee as like a processing fee. I believe that's what we're getting at here in regards to, say, a lease that is signed in order, when the refund is applied, say they got a 12-month lease, they paid the hypothetical $1,000 or whatever it may be for that lease, and then a month later that lease is canceled. Is there a processing fee for a refund on that there? And I believe that's what the discussion is being had for a holdover fee. Or are you referring to the fee that's collected for a holding spot, to hold a spot for currently right now? The $30 fee is referring to that application fee, or we're referring to the fee cancellation fee?
Go ahead, Becca. I was just going to read it, but go ahead.
I'm going to say the holdover fee is for when somebody has a vehicle or something in a space and they don't pay for it.
Actually, it's at the expiration or termination. So it reads as this: if lessee continues to occupy the assigned storage space after the expiration or termination of the lease, lessor will charge and lessee agrees to pay an added holdover fee, the holdover fee, due on the first of each month in the amount of $100 for each month or part of each month until such time as new lease has been executed, the space has been vacated by the lessee, etc. So that was one that was in the lease originally, and I believe that was the case. If their lease expired and they kept their stuff in there, that was a penalty charge basically of $100 a month until they could get their stuff out, until they got their stuff out. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, Darlene, or Dawn.
That is correct. That is correct.
So my concern about this is just the pushback that we've gotten from the community before. In that, we recall, it's just been within the last 2.5 years that we went from allowing it to be a month to month to it being a full year lease. And so there are people who feel that they've had, say, 100% increase in their fee just from that change alone a few years back. And then this last year, when we increased the monthly rate, the per month rate, still having a full year lease. I don't recall what the residents estimated that increase to be, but it was a substantial increase. I thought it was something like 30%.
It was 20%, I think.
Was it? Okay. Regardless, and I also acknowledge that, you know, this is a revenue stream for us, and we do need to think of it as that. From making it sellable to the residents, I'm wondering if we couldn't consider something more of having a lesser annual fee, lesser 12-month fee, and a higher, and have the, excuse me, I'll call it a penalty. That's not the right word, but a higher rate if you only want a 6-month rate. So maybe the new higher rate is 50 and the for 6 months, and the rate for 12 months is 45. It's where's the incentive is where I'm trying to go with this. Putting the rate at 60 per month, which I acknowledge there's more paperwork associated with it. So, I mean, there is that, so that money could be due. But will the residents who objected to us increasing the rate to 50 per month gonna really feel that we've done them any favor by making it 60 in order to get a 6-month rate?
So to answer your question, first I'm going to say I'm not in favor of going backwards on the annual rate. I think the annual 12-month rate needs to stay what it is. We can adjust these numbers on the 6-month rate. I arbitrarily put in 60 and 78. If we need to lower them, like I said, this was all for negotiation. It was just a thought process. But normally, for a short term, it would be a little bit more than what we would be for a long term, because there is more paperwork involved. And it is an option, and that's what I heard from people was we don't even have a 6-month option. We only have the 12-month option. Well, now we have a 6-month option if we vote this in. So that's where we were going. That's what I was thinking when you asked me to put something together on paper.
So I see Steve is online. Steve, have you had, and I see Becca in a second. Let's see if Steve can respond to the motion that's on the table. Well, we can't hear you, Steve, and my lip reading's not that good. Why don't you put it? Okay. All right, Becca, what were you going to say?
I think probably the 6 month, if we do have a 6-month rate, it should be a little higher. Probably not what is in the proposed document. But I also think we should not go backwards on our new 12-month rate. If people are looking for a break, they can go to the 6-month. 5 to 10% increase to cover the additional workload that will be necessary for that, I think is unreasonable. But again, I don't think it should be. I think it's 20% or something now, and I don't think that high.
Right. Marie or Cindy, any further comments before I open it up to the residents?
Like I said, I agree with the higher price on the 6 months and the lower price on the 12-month. And I agree with keeping it 6 and 12 and not anything less than that. I think Roberta did a good job.
Okay. All right. Cindy?
Oh, I think I've said what I need to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Steve?
Interject, just so we have numbers out there. If we were to do 10% instead of the 20%, that would be $55 a month for a small. And then it would be an additional $650 on the large, which I would ask to round up to $72 rather than trying to do, you know, a 50-cent extra. Just keep it whole numbers, basically, is what I'm saying. So $72 or $73 for the large, as opposed to the 65.
Okay. So 55 per month for a small and 72 per month for a large.
Yeah. If you want to go with the 10%, otherwise I'm good with the other two numbers, but it's a group vote. So whatever you guys decide.
Okay. And you heard that, Steve, that the 6-month lease for a small would be 55 instead of the proposed 60, and 72 instead of the proposed 78. Okay.
65, yeah, 78.
All right. So for the residents in the room, if you could come up to the microphone and speak to it, and if there's anyone attending virtually, if you can make your comments in the chat.
Oh, so interesting. Oh, yes, yes.
Am I up?
You're up.
Maynard from 1621 Ghost Riders. I got a question about commercial accounts or people that are using that to park business vehicles. Is there any in there, or did I miss it?
Maynard, stay directed to the motion here.
I got a what?
I said we have to stay directed to the motion on the dollar amounts. If we have some questions, I can get with you after.
Well, I'm not talking about the dollar amount. I'm talking about the kind of vehicles that can park
I know, but we're talking about the dollar amounts. We have to stay on the motion for the moment, but we can take you. Let me get with you afterwards. We can talk about the commercial vehicles there.
All of the vehicles in the RV storage are being leased to the owner of the property and or the renter of the property.
That's something we
Anything
have
else from any resident?
That's something we have to address in the rules and regulations with regard to storage. So it's a separate situation.
Right. Okay. Any other resident coming to speak table is to create a 6-month lease for RV storage at a rate of $55 per month for a small lot spot, or $72 per month for a larger spot. Mike, nice. How many people are in the ballroom? About?
I believe I counted 28.
100, 50, 10? Oh, all right, so not many people there. I appreciate everybody that's there. I don't mean it that way. I'm just, my pause in it is, it's kind of I don't like to do major things that could possibly wait until the fall and during the summer. And that's what's giving me a little bit hard on this. So what we'll do is that we'll call for the vote. The motion on the table is to approve the changes to RV storage lease in the amount of creating a 6-month lease at $55 per month and for a small lot, and $72 a month for a larger lot. So roll call, please.
Sorry, I was sleeping.
Arlene?
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal. I can't see what he's doing. Okay.
He said yes.
Thank you. Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Steve said yes.
okay, and Barbara Fugelberg.
I will vote no, but motion passes.
Okay, motion passed, 1 opposed. Thank you.
I said no. Motion passes. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda, for those of you who attend the planning meeting, this was not something that was discussed at our last planning meeting because the item just came up after we met in the planning meeting. So the motion is regarding 2 new air conditioning units, both for the stitchery area and the quilt room. Can I get a motion to that effect? Becca?
I move to approve the estimate and amount of $24,082 to replace 2 HVAC units to be paid out of reserve item 1320.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So Mike, tell us what you're doing with all these air conditioning down there.
Air conditioning units. One of my favorite thing lately, air conditioning units. So we have a couple issues. We'll start with the stitchery room. Stitchery room air conditioning completely failed. It is no longer working, and the stitchery is hot as can be in there. We hit our highest temperature days, and that unit completely failed. Both units are between 2011 and 2014. So they are a little bit older units. We were hoping to get a couple more years out of them, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Stitchery unit, we're looking at, it's a 5-ton unit with a 3-phase split system. We're looking at a 5-year manufacturer warranty on it, $12,242. Through Ambition Mechanical Services. We did get a secondary estimation from Kinko, which came in at $14,687, a little steeper from Kinko. Ambition Mechanical Services also came in to look at our quilt rooms. The challenge in our quilt rooms was a little more complex. The unit that we have on that roof is a 4-ton currently. What's happening over there is that that unit is not cooling to the desired temperature, and it is struggling to keep up. It's an older unit. It's R22, and that's probably one of our biggest issues, is that they're getting away from this R22 in general. So we have a crossroads with this quilt room, is to put $3,000 worth of R22 in it right at the moment, try to baby it through a little bit further. Where we're going to be looking at R22 in the next year is going to be most likely closer to $6,000-7,000 to just feed that unit. Another issue that we're dealing with that room is that we've found upon inspection that we're really pushing air into the drop ceiling within that location. So that unit is running consistently, but it's not vented properly in that room. What would be included in the estimation for the quilt room would be to reduct off of that unit and add a return into the hallway in between the two units. What's doing is it's feeding all of the air into the drop ceiling off of that existing unit. And then the bleeder valve is leaking off the bottom of that unit, leaking out all the R22. The unit is on its and brings to failure, just like the unit in stitchery, which would be why we had them look at that. We did request upon inspection that they stated that we should be looking at a 5-ton unit versus a 4-ton unit for those two rooms, those classrooms there, and what was estimated at a cost of $11,840. It is a different style unit, as the other unit on stitchery is a split system. So the cost is a little bit steeper on stitchery than it is for quilt, which is just due to the type of unit is on that roof.
Okay. All right. And neither of those buildings have had any structural roofing done recently that we would be impacting. So that's the good news. Any questions or comments from any member of the board?
Do we know, or can you tell me, because I forgot to look, I apologize, what is the dollar amount associated in the reserve account number? I think that's 1320.
80,000 in that reserve for 1320. It's including 6 units that are listed under 1320 on town center common areas.
Right. And understanding we're only about 39-40% funded or reserve, I get it.
Yeah, but remember, we all I know all the board members are aware of this, but just a reminder to the community is that many of these units that we have are older. The stitchery one isn't as old as some, but they all have, most of them have 0 life, and we have historically done run to fail, and so we end up with situations like this. And somehow they always seem to fail in the summer. unfortunate.
Yeah.
So any other questions, comments from any board member? Marie or Cindy? I can't see your faces, so anything from you on this?
Barb, I have a question, Mike, maybe you can remind me. We got a proposal from Ambition on both, but can go only on the one.
That is correct. Kinko couldn't figure out what was wrong with the quilt room. They did not provide an estimate.
Thank you, Cindy. Marie, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Mike, we've had Kinko's do a lot of our work for a number of years, and we've been satisfied with them. What's our experience with Ambition?
Ambition relationship of Kinko, I didn't mean that negatively towards Kinko. Kinko does a lot of work for us. They're wonderful. They do business with us in maintenance to some of these units. And Ambition Air, the relationship is newer. Ambition was brought to us from the relationship with Pioneer Roofing. Ambition Air was the company that came forth to install the unit for the town center, the 20-ton, that's for the chuck wagon. And that was the third-party vendor that worked through that. With Ambition Air so far, he's installed the new refrigeration units for all the walk-in freezers, and he did do a few of the other compressors that were included in that unit. We've been really happy with his response time and his communication with us. I really think that it's a smaller business and more family. Sorry about that. We're family-owned business, and the gentleman is just wonderful to communicate with. So far, it's been a good relationship.
Good, very good. And Steve Deal made a comment in the chat line that run to fail doesn't always work. They need to be replaced. Any other questions from any board member or comments before I open it to the public? Therefore, I'll open it up to the community who are in the ballroom or those who are attending virtually. You can put your question in the chat line.
Donna, 379. I just have a question on getting quotes. Are we reaching out to like other bigger companies, Parker's and Sons and all those other ones that do this kind of work to get more of a quote to see if we can get some competition?
Very much so. The challenges that we have are that I don't know what the reasoning is behind this situation. We had 3 different appointments with 2 different I don't know if it's my microphone, Dave, but something's going on here. We had 2 other meetings that were scheduled 3 different times with 2 other companies that decided they weren't even going to show up. And some we had relationships with in the past. So I can't really speak to what the reasoning is, but it's a challenge to try to get any vendors on this roof. And half the time when they do come out, they say they're going to provide an estimate and you never hear from them again. So we're trying to broaden our horizons with our vendors and maintain those relationships and get as many estimates as we can, because it's competitive out there. The cost of the unit itself is pretty much ballpark from whoever you're looking at, but the labor changes quite a bit, even just between Kinko and Ambition Air. So yeah, we're trying to get as many as we possibly can. At the last moment we were promised at least another estimate that did not come through.
This is Barb. That has been a problem for a number of years. And what we've noticed, just as a refresh the residents' memory, we do have a policy that anything over $10,000, we do ask that they get 3 quotes from. But as Mike said, it's always very difficult. And what we find is that many of these vendors don't want to deal with HOAs. In that they know that it's very time consuming to get anything done because of the way the process in order to get things approved. So a lot of people just won't even entertain giving us a bid. But it sounds like we've got Kinko's is a reputable company, and Mike has been very comfortable with Ambition too. So that sounds good. Anything else from any of the residents?
Barb, is it because you said they don't want to deal with the HOA? Is it because of getting the payment to them,
Or is it just, they just don't want to do it?
Getting through the process. They just don't want to enter in the process because that they know that in order for anything to get, if they get a bid, just say if any one of us are going to have any work done on our house, we'll pretty much tell that person then and there that day when we see the bid that, yeah, we'll either go forward with the project or not. But in an HOA, they've got to go through having a motion going to the board, having a board meeting, getting the board to all agree, and then finally getting it signed. And it's stuff that they just don't want to have to deal with. Not that it's our board, it's any HOA board. So anything else in the ballroom? Then I'll call for the motion. The motion on the table is to approve the estimate in the amount of $24,082 to replace 2 air conditioning units to be paid out of reserve item 1320. And that would be through Ambition. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beshan,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion
motion
passes.
passed unanimous.
Okay. All right, the last thing on the agenda has to do with the assessment collection policy. Give me just a second, I'm pulling that up. So, okay, all right. So the motion is to approve the corrected assessment collection policy.
I'll second.
Okay, all right. So Darlene, can you give us a little background on this? Or maybe it's Dawn that has the background on the changing of the collection policy.
Yeah. So I was reached out by HomeCo, our person that does the collections, and our current collection policy, and I apologize, I'm not sure I have the current one, but basically when we send a final demand letter to somebody that's getting ready to go to collections, that's the final piece of the letter that needs to go out before them. The way we had it before is we did collections, we did final demand collections, and then we did an intent to lien and then a lien. So that final demand was not the final paperwork that went out. So we have to change it to where when we do the intent to lien first, then a lien, and if still no response or payment from their assessments, then we send the final demand and collections, and then we're done. So our attorneys told us we have to follow the procedure logistically, and we were not doing that, so that's why we have to revise this.
Barbara, we can't hear you.
Okay. So it's just really changing our sequencing. We're not changing the dates.
Now we
Correct.
got
We are
150.
changing the sequence.
Person's still going to get a late notice at the same amount of time. Oh, you can't hear? Huh.
Yeah, but we're going out to 150 days now, whereas previously we went out to 120.
So can you hear me? Oh, well, I don't know what happened.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
So we can change the days, but you have to remember, like when we do an
You can hear
intent to
me?
lien,
Okay.
we have to give them at least 30 days to receive the intent to lien, because if we cut it too short, then we're not giving them enough time. So we have to have a certain amount of time, especially during that process. So we can change the 120 days for, say, the final demand a little shorter, so it's not 6 or 7 months out. But the process is we have to do the intent to lien first, the lien, the final demand collections, and then after that, it goes to an attorney, foreclosure, or whatever it may go to. Does that make sense?
Doesn't it? But doesn't it
Like,
wait like 30 days after the final demand, right? Before we send it to collections, and that's 5 months out. It's 150 days. That seems awfully long. I don't know if we can cut it down anyway.
You need to be really careful. Let me explain to you what a lien is. The lien actually follows the property. But you have to give time for those paperwork to be processed. And it does sometimes take 30 to 60 days to get a lien in place. The problem is we should have been doing that first before we did our demand, and we haven't been doing that. So that kind of changes the way we have to, our deadline dates or our dates of when we could move on to the next step, because you need to give them time to get those documents processed and filed.
So this is Barb, and so I think this is just making sure that in essence we're doing everything proper. That what you're saying is that if we've already done a final demand, we would not be able to place a lien on it. And it's really critical that we be able to place a lien and get that recorded on the property. So this way it just makes sure that we're fine. And in reality, as I look at our aged owner reports, there's no issue with this. We haven't violated anything currently. So that's the good news. So just by changing this, it tightens it up and it makes sure that we're good. Marie?
I'm sorry, I was going to ask a question. Go ahead.
Marie or Cindy, any questions or comments?
No, I'm fine.
And Cindy?
I'm fine.
Okay, Roberta?
Yeah, so I have a question. So I'm reading through this. So just help me, Darlene or Dawn or whoever. So at 15 days delinquent, we send out a notice. At 30 days delinquent, we're making a phone outreach. 45 days, so that's 15 days after the phone outreach, we're sending the second late notice. Then 15 days later, we're doing a 60 days delinquent or an intent to lien notice to let them know we're going to file. Now we wait 30 days before we record the lien. So in other words, we're giving them another 30 days before we actually record the lien. Then it looked like we were given another 30 days after the lien before we do a final days once we recorded that lien, or can we shorten that time frame up to say 15 days?
I don't think it's realistic, Roberta. I can see the desire to make it as short as possible, but as Darlene says, getting it done even at the county level in a 30-day period is difficult. Changing that.
I just want to. Okay, so let me understand the process. When we do the intent to lien notice, we have to give them 30 days. So if I understand correctly, when we say we are going to record the lien, it could take 30 days to 60 days to get that recorded. Is that what I understand, Darlene?
Correct.
Okay. So that's why we have to at least wait 30 days before we do a final demand letter?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So you would have a lien in place, you do your final demand letter, then you've got two areas covered. You've got your lien, which covers the property. So if that lot is sold, you will get that money in the sale of that property. You should get that money. With
So
the
then
final
my question.
demand.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What's your question?
No, I got you. With the final demand, and I guess my question would be, do we have to wait 30 days before we send it to a collection agency? Or can we shorten that time up?
Given the number of residents that we have that are not on site, in the number of times that we've got issues just even with the mail system, just even if we send them a fine, we need to give these patients, these residents an ample opportunity to receive it and act upon it. And so I think shortening it less than 30 days is going to create a lot of ill will.
Okay, so I'll be the devil's advocate. I don't care about goodwill when somebody is not paying their bills. because they choose not to pay their bills. And that's when our delinquencies have been an issue, not because somebody's coming to a hardship. If they've had a hardship, they usually contact the office right away or the board of directors. Might be a little different. But Steve just asked the primary question, where do these fall in line with state statutes? And are we following? I'm assuming, Darlene, we are following anything that's regarded in the state statutes for zoning.
Yeah, we are following the guidelines. There's no, some of these dates we can change, but again, you want to be able to give these people a chance to bring their account current. If you change from 120 days for a final demand to sending it over to a collection agency, say, if you only give them 15 days, you got to take into account, well, they've already know that this process has already started, but you've also got to take into account our mail delivery system. These days, it doesn't always work the way it used to. And
Okay.
sometimes they need to be able to have a way to get the funds together before it goes to the actual collection agency. So we could shorten that
Okay.
time, but we need to be careful.
And remember,
worries,
during
thank
this whole time, the conversation that Dawn is having with the residents is that she is giving them an opportunity to go into a payment plan.
Right, I got it. No more questions. I just want to clarify.
All right. Any questions, comments from any other board member? Question, comment on this before I open it up? Hearing none. Any of the residents have a question or comment on it, either the chat line, or in the room? Seeing none, just reiterate to the, or do we have one? I'm sorry, I looked down just briefly.
Nothing here.
I just want to reiterate to the residents that our aged owner balances are less than they've been in the last 5 years. And so we're doing a good job. So with that, I'll call for the motion. The motion on the table is to implement or to approve the revised assessment collection policy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Great. So with that, that is the last of what's on the agenda here. Let me get back to my agenda. Give me a second. So with that, just a reminder to the residents that we will be looking for applications around the middle of September. We'll be sending out a blast to have any residents who's interested in filling our vacant board position. As many of the residents are already aware, we lost Ron Woodward this last summer. So his position will be replaced by the board. We'll be sending out a notice about mid-September for residents who are interested in applying for that position. And then the board will be interviewing those candidates, but prior to the October board meeting. I don't have any other announcements. Darlene or Mike, do you have any announcements for the community?
I have a couple updates that I wanted to bring to the association's attention. We will be having the east side of Town Center parking lot coated on the 14th, which is this upcoming Monday. So the east end of Town Center parking lot will be closed for 24 hours, which is from the dog park towards Roy Rogers. So that'll be taken care of on Monday. We'll have 24-hour closure and it will be painted overnight. So they'll be taking care of that, and we should be completed with that program. They do have minimal painting to in the villas, some curb painting to take place. And that'll be included in the blast of all the details of what's going on. Should be pretty minimal. We should have full access to what we need. We also have most of our utilities that we're taken care of through YSC paving have been re-raised, I should say, and they were completed. They finished up the concrete over the last couple days. We are still waiting on our car wash. We did get an update from Kevin at National Car Wash Systems that our system has been built and it is out for shipping. So at this point in time, we're just waiting on the ship to come across the ocean or whatever is going to happen there. So that should be here shortly. We anticipate to get that in as soon as possible. He did confirm that we will have about a day and a half of installation. So it shouldn't be a big deal once it arrives. Also wanted to just make it aware to some of the residents that we did make a minimal change in between the DRC office and the Manzanita office, our Manzanita room. The DRC office has moved into the old Manzanita room, and the Manzanita room has become the old DRC office. Our hopes were to try to bring the DRC in closer to the main office and provide additional space for potential club use and things like that in that room. So that has been closed in the time being, just because we're doing some modifications, painting, etc. in that room. We should have it open within the next week or so, we're hoping, and then we'll have our meetings back in that location. In the time being, we've had minimal, meetings. We can always have them in the main office or the chaparral room, like the planning meeting that we utilize. So it's been working out okay. And I believe that's the only major updates for projects. We do have the pole installation automation system that'll be going in within the next week. City of Surprise permits were just acquired and approved, so once that they're going to be on site, I'm hoping Monday or Tuesday. We emailed earlier today. We should have that automation system installed by the end of next week. There won't be any impact or closures to any of our pools during the installation of that project, but we're looking forward to seeing the difference that that's going to make in our pool chemicals and things along those lines. So that's all we have today, and thank you so much for coming.
The only other thing I'll mention to the residents is that following this meeting, the board will be going into executive session for the specific reason of talking a legal issue and a couple of appeals and delinquencies. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And
A second.
Second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion approved. Thank you very much.